Hello! Been a minute but figured a voiceover on a video about how to make dice molds is appropriate. So here I am. I already had a few Lego bricks laying around, but definitely was not enough, so I ended up buying off-brand bricks on Amazon because actual Legos are expensive. First step is to dump out the entire content of the box while you're trying to pour out a little. You would think I'd have learned the first time that this happened to tape up the bottom so it doesn't happen again, but here we are. I've already made a few single molds before this, but this time around I decided to try making a slab mold. I work off of a small table in my garage, so being able to just take apart the Legos and then put them away saves a lot more space. For this slab, 3 blocks high gives me enough room to make the base as thick as I want. Obviously, if you're working with larger masters, then you're gonna want to go higher. Just make sure you have enough room to play around with. Next, grab some packing tape because now you'll need to tape up the bottom to keep the silicone in. I did 3 going one way and then 2 more perpendicular across. So I realized after I taped the slab that I should probably do a test mold with only 1 die in case it's made with something that would stop my silicone from curling around it. I would rather waste a small amount of silicone that way rather than fanning out with the slab. So the silicone I use is Dragon Skin 20, which is surprisingly hard to come by where I'm located. I mixed 6 US fluid ounces, equal parts A and B, and poured to about 3/4 up the 3rd block. A little ironic that I try not to waste silicone, but I ended up doing it anyway. Alright, pop that into the pot for 24 hours at 40 psi. Well, I do 40 because I pressurize my dies at 32 psi. You want to make sure that you pressurize your mold higher than you would your dies so it doesn't warp and get weird when you use it. This is where I make my mold a little differently than Alchemist Static. I only take the first layer off and use the remaining blocks as a stop when I cut the corners of the mold to create the keys. Make sure you cut a corner different than the other 3 so you can easily tell which way the lid goes on. Next, I take a Q-tip and alcohol to wipe the exposed die in case there's some tape residue left on it. If you're using the same silicone as I am and have Vaseline, grab that and wipe it on any surface of the cured silicone that the new one will be touching when you pour it. Get it as close to the die as you can without touching it, but if you do accidentally get it on the die, you can clean it off with the alcohol like earlier. The Vaseline is to keep the lid from curing and fusing with the body of the mold. If you don't have any Vaseline or you're using a different type of silicone, look up alternatives that'll work for what you have. I've heard of people using mold release or baby powder, but I wouldn't recommend using them without doing your own due diligence first. Oh, I should warn you, if you use Vaseline, it'll leave streaks and some residue in the finished product. Easy to clean if you care, but it hasn't affected me beyond that. The dice I cast in it wasn't affected as far as I've seen. Alright, after I finished getting Vaseline everywhere, I put 2 layers of blocks back on. Where before, I mixed too much silicone, this time I made too little. That's where the cut up silicone comes in. I just sprinkled some in and tried to get it to at least the top of the first block layer. Ideally, I like to do a 1.5 blocks, but meh. Another 24 hours in a pot at 40 psi and ta-da! You have a finished product. Congratulations, you just made your first mold. Nice and easy, yeah? Break it out of the mold, clean up the sides with a blade or X-Acto knife, and retrieve your master die from inside. For the slab, I probably could have gotten away with making it smaller, but I'm not gonna ever find out because I don't plan to make another slab. Also, I guess I didn't tape it very well because there's a few areas where it's not flat, but it is what it is, just do better than me. Anyway, here's all the molds I've made so far. Thanks for watching! Oh hi! You're still here? That's a sign you have to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have already, then you're just simply amazing. Okay, bye!